It was the day I had been waiting for my entire life. The day my son was born. I can still remember every detail of that moment, even though it's been years. The sterile smell of the hospital, the sound of my wife, Elena, breathing heavily, trying to push through the pain. And then, suddenly, there was silence. An overwhelming, all-encompassing silence. And then, the cry. The sound of a new life entering this world. It was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. My son. Our son. It was supposed to be the beginning of everything. The start of a perfect family. As I held him in my arms for the first time, the world seemed to stop. I was no longer a man with just a wife. I was a father, and everything had changed. His small hand curled around my finger, his tiny fragile body swaddled in a soft blue blanket. I couldn't stop staring at him, as though he might disappear if I looked away. Elena smiled weakly, exhausted, but radiating love. "He's perfect," she whispered, and I agreed. He was perfect. Days passed. The joy was constant. The sleepless nights, the diaper changes, the late-night feedings, they didn't matter. Every moment I spent with him was worth every sacrifice. My life had found its purpose in those small, gentle moments, feeding him, watching him sleep, dreaming of his future. But as the weeks went by, I started noticing little things. Things I couldn't shake off, but I didn't know what to make of them at first. At first, it was his face. When he was born, I saw nothing but innocence in his little features. His small nose, the curve of his lips, the way his eyes squinted in the light. But as he grew, I couldn't help but notice something that didn't quite match. His eyes, there was something off about them. They didn't look like mine or Elena's. My own eyes were dark brown, like hers. His were a strange shade of green, like the color of grass after rain. I dismissed it at first. I told myself it didn't matter. It was just a baby thing. Babies' features change all the time, I reasoned. Then there were the comments. Friends and family visited, cooing over the baby, and while most of them were quick to tell me how much he resembled me, there were a few who hesitated, as if trying to find something that didn't quite fit. "He's a handsome boy," said my mother, "but he doesn't really look like you, does he?" I laughed it off. "Of course he does. He's got my nose." But she was right in a way. The resemblance wasn't as strong as I had imagined it would be. And then there was Elena's sister, Claire. She had always been the blunt one in the family. "Are you sure he's yours?" she had joked once, when the baby was about 2 weeks old. I knew she was just teasing, but something about her words stuck with me. I laughed it off too, but the seed had been planted. That was when I started to wonder. But I pushed it away, telling myself that I was being paranoid. He was my son, and I loved him. That was all that mattered, right? Still, I couldn't escape the nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. His face, the strange little things people said. No, I told myself. This was my son. The only thing that mattered was the love I had for him. But the feeling didn't go away. It lingered in the back of my mind like a shadow I couldn't escape. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. The moment I first held my son, everything was supposed to be perfect. But the doubt crept in like a thief in the night, stealing my peace, one small crack at a time. It started when I couldn't stop thinking about the little things, the strange color of his eyes, the way people kept commenting about how he didn't look like me. At first, I chalked it up to paranoia, the irrational fears of a new father. But the nagging feeling never went away. It sat with me, constantly reminding me that maybe, just maybe, there was something more to all of this than I was willing to admit. I started looking at him more closely, studying his face in the dim light of the nursery during late-night feedings. His lips, his jawline, there was something about them that didn't match my own features. It wasn't enough to scream something's wrong, but it was enough to make me question everything I thought I knew. Then, one afternoon, the conversation with Claire lingered in my mind longer than usual. The offhanded comment about whether my son was really mine, it stuck with me. I laughed it off in the moment, but now, as I stood in the kitchen, holding the bottle of milk in my hand, I couldn't help but think, what if she was right? What if he wasn't mine? I had never been the type to dwell on things like this. I trusted Elena completely. After all, we had been through so much together. But the doubts, they were growing. And when I noticed that a few of his facial expressions were eerily similar to those of a man I had once met at a work function, a man I'd briefly spoken to who was also from Elena's circle, something inside me snapped. I knew it was crazy. I knew I was being irrational, but I couldn't stop it. One evening, as Elena was preparing dinner, I walked into the living room, holding my phone. I'd been reading up on DNA testing, and it seemed simple enough. I had seen ads for it, companies that offered at-home kits. A simple test, I thought, just to ease my mind. I sat down next to her, my hands shaking slightly. She noticed but didn't say anything. She was busy with the lasagna. "Elena," I began, trying to sound casual, "I was thinking about something." She glanced at me over her shoulder, her face soft with the exhaustion of motherhood. "What is it, babe?" she asked, stirring the sauce in the pot. I took a breath. "I was thinking about getting a DNA test, just, to confirm everything, for peace of mind." She froze for a second, then laughed lightly, as if I had just told her a joke. "A DNA test? Are you serious? Why?" I felt my heart pounding in my chest. "Just curious, I guess." She didn't respond right away. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but she just shook her head and continued cooking. "You're being silly. It's our son, remember?" she said, as though that was supposed to be enough. But I wasn't convinced. The test arrived a few days later. I couldn't tell you why I didn't just forget about it, but once I had made the decision, it felt like it was the only thing I could do. I followed the instructions, took a swab of his cheek, and sealed it up in the envelope, sending it off. It was absurd. It was crazy. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something I was missing. Something that didn't quite add up. The waiting was unbearable. It took about 2 weeks before the results came. I remember holding the envelope in my hands, feeling like my life was about to be turned upside down. I didn't even want to open it at first. It felt wrong. But then I did. And when I saw the words printed on the paper, everything in my world shifted. "You are not the biological father." I blinked, the words blurring in front of me. I couldn't breathe. My pulse thudded in my ears, and my stomach twisted in a sickening knot. This couldn't be real. There had to be a mistake. I stared at the paper for what felt like hours, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. My son wasn't mine. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. Everything I thought I knew about myself, about my family, about my life, shattered in an instant. The air was thick, like I was suffocating, and my hands trembled as I held the paper. I wanted to scream, to cry, but no sound came out. The silence was deafening. I thought of Elena. I thought of everything we had built together. I thought of that tiny little face I had held in my arms just weeks ago. My son. But he wasn't my son. I stumbled back into the living room, the paper still clutched in my hand. Elena looked up from the stove, smiling. "Dinner's almost ready," she said, but the smile faded when she saw my face. "What's wrong?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I just held the paper in front of her, my hands shaking uncontrollably. She looked at it, and I saw the color drain from her face. Her eyes widened in panic. "No," she whispered. This can't be right." But it was. I could hardly breathe. The DNA results felt like a weight pressing on my chest, crushing me. Elena stood there, frozen, staring at the paper I'd handed her, her face pale, her lips trembling. "No," she repeated more forcefully now. "This can't be right. There has to be some mistake." Her voice wavered, but she refused to look at me, her eyes glued to the paper, as though willing it to change. Her fingers traced the edges of the document as if she could somehow erase the truth with a touch. I stood there, my heart hammering in my throat. Elena, it's right. It says I'm not the father. It says he's not mine. She shook her head rapidly, as though trying to dismiss the reality of it all. This is ridiculous. Who did this? Who gave you these results? Her voice was rising now, a mixture of panic and fury. I did it, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside me. I did the test. I needed to know. I stepped forward, trying to make her see the gravity of what was happening. You told me he was mine. You promised me, Elena. How could you lie about this? How could you keep something like this from me? Her face twisted in pain, her eyes darting nervously around the room, anywhere but me. I didn't lie. I didn't know. I didn't. But her words caught in her throat. It was as though she was trying to convince herself just as much as she was trying to convince me. She took a step back, her hands shaking. Please, don't do this, she whispered. Please don't make this harder than it already is. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of confusion and anger. She wouldn't look me in the eyes. She wouldn't even speak the truth. And then it hit me. She was avoiding something. Avoiding me. Avoiding the truth. I stepped toward her. Who is it, Elena? Who is the father? Who have you been with? Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I saw her hands tremble as she reached out for something, anything to hold on to. She was cracking, and I couldn't look away. I had to know, but before she could say anything, the doorbell rang. My mind screamed at me to ignore it, to stay in this moment, to demand the answers I needed. But Elena looked relieved for the distraction, as if she was thankful for a break from the suffocating tension in the room. Just a second, she said quickly, her voice barely above a whisper. She turned away, and I could see her hands still shaking. The door opened, and I heard her voice drop into something softer as she greeted someone. I didn't have the energy to care. All I could do was stare at the DNA results in my hands, my mind reeling from the questions that had no answers. Then I heard her voice, her mother's voice, coming from the hallway. Elena, what's going on in here? I heard shouting. My stomach dropped. I turned toward the door, and sure enough, Elena's mother, Linda, stepped into the room, her face concerned but strangely calm. She was always the one who had the answers in moments like these. The one who knew everything, always seemed to be one step ahead of everyone else. But today, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more going on. Something she knew that she wasn't saying. Elena didn't meet her gaze. Instead, she lowered her eyes and muttered, "Mom, it's nothing." Linda raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. She glanced at me, then back at Elena, before finally allowing her gaze to fall on the paper in my hand. Her expression shifted for a split second, something I can only describe as a flicker of recognition. It was almost as if she knew exactly what it was, what it meant. "Elena, what's going on?" Linda's voice had dropped an octave, sounding colder now. "What's that in his hand?" Elena faltered. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I could see the struggle on her face, but I didn't care about her lies anymore. I didn't care about anything except the truth. I stepped forward, holding out the paper again, my voice steady but full of accusation. "She lied to me, Linda. My son, he's not mine. I did a DNA test, and now I need to know why. Why the hell did she keep this from me?" Linda's eyes never left the paper. She looked at it, and then at me, her lips pressing into a tight line. I don't know what this is about," she said, her voice distant, guarded, but something in her eyes told me she knew more than she was letting on. There was a shift in her expression, a tightness around her jaw, and I realized then I was not the only one who had been kept in the dark. Linda knew. She had to know. I took a step back, the anger surging in me. "You knew, didn't you? You knew all along that I wasn't his father." Elena's mother's gaze hardened, But she didn't deny it. Instead, she shifted her weight, her arms crossing over her chest. "That's enough," she said quietly, almost dismissively. "This is a family matter. You don't understand." My world had collapsed in on itself. Everything I had thought I knew, the love, the family, the life I had built, was built on a lie. And now I was standing here, not just with a wife who couldn't look me in the eye, but with a mother-in-law who was as complicit in this as anyone. I turned away, the weight of it all sinking in. My hands were trembling, and for the first time I felt completely alone, completely betrayed. And the worst part? I hadn't even started getting my answers yet. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, the image of my son, my supposed son, flashed before me. The face I thought was mine. The smile I had always believed was a reflection of my own. But it wasn't mine. None of it was. I had to find out who he really was. The next morning I knew I had to confront Elena again, but I also knew that she would never tell me the truth. I couldn't rely on her anymore. So I began my own search. I started small, simple things that didn't seem out of the ordinary at first. I went through the photos on our shared computer, trying to find any clues that might explain what had happened. Pictures from vacations, family gatherings, moments captured in time. At first, everything looked innocent. Elena and me, happy, together. But as I scrolled through the albums, I noticed something that made my stomach turn. There were pictures from a girls' weekend she had gone on about a year before our son was born. I remembered it vaguely. She had mentioned a bachelorette party she attended in Las Vegas. She had come back looking different, distant, but I thought nothing of it at the time. She had claimed it was just a fun trip, a chance to let loose with her friends before settling down into family life. But there was something off about the photos from that weekend. Elena was smiling. Yes, but there was a man in the background of one of the shots. I didn't recognize him at first. He was standing next to her, laughing, his arm around her shoulder in a familiar way. There was a familiarity there, but it didn't sit right. The name tag on the man's shirt was clear. Toby. I didn't know any Toby. I zoomed in on the picture, my heart pounding. It felt like I was peeling back a layer of something ugly, something hidden for far too long. This wasn't the innocent picture of a bachelorette party I had imagined. This was something more, something intimate. I scrolled through more pictures, trying to make sense of it all, and then I found it. A text message dated a few months after the party. Elena had sent a message to someone, one of her old friends from the weekend trip. It was buried deep within a thread of casual messages, but this one stood out. "I've been thinking about him. Toby was just so different. I don't know what to do." I felt my blood run cold. Toby. The name I had seen in the picture. She had been thinking about him. What did that mean? What had happened between them? I dug deeper, searching through her old messages, even past the ones from me. I didn't want to invade her privacy, but I needed answers. I had to understand how this had happened. And then I found the message that stopped my heart. "You know I'm not going to forget that night, right? I just keep thinking about you, and I miss you." The message was clear. Elena had slept with Toby. There was no doubt about it. The text was sent after she came back from the bachelorette party. I sat there, frozen. I couldn't believe it. The man who wasn't even a blip on my radar had become the reason I was sitting here, holding the shattered pieces of my life in my hands. As I continued to scroll, one image caught my attention. A photo of her and Toby, much closer this time, taken in a dimly lit bar. They were leaning in toward each other, their faces inches apart. The smile on Toby's face was smug, confident. Elena, on the other hand, looked guilty. There was something about her eyes, something I had never noticed before, that spoke of regret, of something she had tried to bury. But the truth was undeniable now. I had been a fool. She had cheated on me. And Toby was the one who had given me this son that wasn't mine. But it wasn't just the photos and texts that were destroying me. It was the memories. I started to remember fragments from the past. Tiny details that hadn't meant anything at the time, but now felt like pieces of a puzzle I was only beginning to put together. There was that one time, during a family get-together, when Elena had seemed unusually distant. She had excused herself early, saying she wasn't feeling well, but I had caught her texting someone quietly in the corner of the room. She had been looking at her phone, her fingers typing quickly as if she was trying to hide something. And the time she was late coming back from work? She had claimed it was traffic, but something in her voice had sounded off. All these things, the small, seemingly innocent moments, suddenly became signs of something darker. How had I missed all of this? My suspicion now wasn't just a fleeting thought. It was a fact. I knew who the father was. It was Toby. But I still didn't know how far this went. How long had Elena been hiding this from me? What else was she lying about? There was only one way to find out. I needed to confront her. I needed to face her and demand the truth. No more hiding, no more excuses. It was time. I couldn't avoid it any longer. The truth had been staring me in the face for weeks, and I had spent too much time in denial, too much time trying to piece together a family that wasn't mine. I had everything I needed now: the photos, the text messages, the proof of Elena's betrayal, and it was time for her to face the consequences. I didn't wait for the perfect moment. There was no such thing anymore. I told Elena I needed to speak with her. The tension between us was so thick I could feel it in every breath I took. She didn't know what was coming, and I didn't care. I called Linda, my mother-in-law, and told her to come over. I needed her to be here. I needed her to witness this. I needed her to understand that I wasn't just some fool who could be lied to forever. I was going to expose them both. As I sat at the dining room table, my hands folded in front of me, I thought about the life I had built with Elena. I thought about the little boy who had called me Dad for the past 6 weeks. But none of it mattered anymore. It was all a lie, and I had to make them see it. The doorbell rang. Elena was standing behind me, her hand on the doorknob, her face pale. Linda was right behind her, her eyes carefully neutral, though I could see the flicker of concern in them. I could feel their unease in the room as they stepped inside. "Why did you want us here?" Linda asked, her voice low, guarded. I stood up slowly, not looking at Elena. I couldn't. Not yet. "I've had enough of this," I said, my voice cold but steady. "The lies, the deceit. I need the truth, Elena. Now." Her eyes darted around the room, her expression a mixture of guilt and panic. "What are you talking about? What lies?" "You think I didn't know?" I asked, my voice rising slightly. I held up the folder of evidence I had put together over the past week. Photos, text messages, everything. "You thought I wouldn't find out?" Her face went white, her lips trembling. "Please, we can talk about this." I turned to Linda, who had been silently watching. "You knew, didn't you? You knew this whole time." Linda's eyes hardened. She didn't respond immediately, but I saw it. The small, subtle way she avoided my gaze. "Linda," I said, my voice now a whisper of contempt, "you're just as guilty as she is. You've been lying to me, too. All these years, you knew the truth. And you let me believe that this was my son." Elena looked like she was going to collapse. She took a step back, her hand covering her mouth. "I didn't. Please, I didn't want to hurt you. It was a mistake. It was just one mistake." I took a step closer to her, and for the first time in weeks, I met her eyes. "It wasn't just a mistake. You betrayed me. You lied to me, to my face, and you made me think this child, this little boy, was mine." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I couldn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. "I didn't know how to tell you," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought you'd leave me." "I should have," I said flatly. "I should have left you the moment I found out, but instead I tried to build a life, a future, with a lie." There was silence in the room as the weight of my words settled over us all. Elena and Linda both stared at me, but I wasn't finished. I had more to say, more to do. I turned to the door and called out, "Toby, come in." They both froze. Elena's face twisted in disbelief, and Linda's jaw clenched, as if she already knew what was about to happen. Toby walked into the room, his face unfamiliar to me in this context. But to them, he was the truth they had been hiding. He was the one who had slept with Elena, the one who had created the child that wasn't mine. "Who the hell are you?" Elena asked, her voice trembling. "I'm the father of your son," Toby replied, his tone calm, but his eyes full of unspoken resentment. I stepped back, letting the truth sink in. Elena staggered back, almost collapsing into the chair. Linda stood stone-faced, her lips pursed. There was no way out of this for any of them. "You didn't think I would find out, did you?" I asked quietly, almost to myself. "But you've all underestimated me." I turned to Elena again. "You'll never get another penny from me. I'm cutting ties with you, with all of you. I'll make sure this kid knows the truth. The world will know what you did." I had already taken action. The paperwork had been filed the day before. I had made sure that no one would be able to claim a single cent of my money. No inheritance, no house. I had made sure everything was in order to protect myself and my future. I wasn't going to be tied to this betrayal any longer. "You're going to regret this," Elena whispered, her voice breaking. "You can't just walk away from us." "Oh, I can," I said, feeling the finality of it. "I already have." I turned to leave the house. Elena didn't stop me. Linda didn't stop me. None of them tried to change my mind. As I walked out the door, I didn't feel the relief I thought I would. There was no joy in revenge, but there was satisfaction. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again.